Welcome back to the Castaway Consultants, where we teach future Survivor players how to play the game by criticizing current players. Today, we are talking about Survivor 48, Episode 8, A Rift Between All of Us. I'm one of your co-hosts, Josh Wessler, joined today by Ryan Stacy and Derek Kubicek. How you guys doing?
All pretty good.
That's good. I'm glad to hear.
There was an episode of Survivor tonight, so that's pretty good.
Was there? Oh, I thought we were just hanging out.
A lot of questionable gameplay, almost as questionable as when I opened the podcast last week and said season 49. So for those listeners who caught that, yeah, I did too. My bad.
How embarrassing.
Oops.
You call yourself a consultant.
If that's the worst mistake I made, that's...
We've had worse mistakes. It's fine.
And there were worse mistakes made on this episode of Survivor tonight. Big time. I think there's going to be a little shifting in the who cannot win spot of the podcast, which we'll get into.
I mean, by default, there kind of has to be.
By default, there kind of has to be, but more than just the default.
Oh, okay.
So,
Ryan's doing his classic, I planted a flag and now I'm lifting that flag and look, a new hill.
1 week later.
We're going to plant these flags on the world's shortest hills.
No. As I've said numerous times, when I am given new information, I change my mind, as all should. Some people like to plant their flags and never move them.
See, but I like to plant my flag the first time and be right.
I mean, that's the goal, but when you get new information, you move your flag.
Hey, all I'm saying is, boo you, Ryan.
Boo
We're gonna
you.
we will continue to make fun of you until you have a track record that's good enough to warrant otherwise.
My track record is fine.
It's immaculate.
It's almost. I'm not saying I'm perfect, but I'm close. So episode 8, a rift between us all. Let's keep going before there's a rift between all of us.
We have plenty of rifts between us. We're fine.
Should we get into spoilers?
I think it's time.
Sure.
3, 2, 1. Spoiler alert. We're gonna lose Chrissy tonight. There's some questionable gameplay, and someone, I'm not gonna name names, David, is gonna drop to the bottom of the who can win list.
Well, so much for burying the lead. You just you exhumed that from the depths
Stay
of the
tuned
end
for
of the
more.
podcast.
Stay tuned for more in-depth analysis tonight at 10.
Breaking news: Ryan has moved David to the cannot win list.
David had a rough night. This is a bad episode for David. I think David is one of those guys who can be very cool and fun to be around when things are going his way, but when things aren't quite going his way, he might be a little less fun to be around.
I mean, I did think you had him criminally high in your rank downs before. You had him at number 2.
I think that's fair, but remember last week, if you'll remember, I said there was a top 7 tier, and it was very tight and almost interchangeable. Now that we got a little more information, I think that's broken up. And I do, David was too high. You're right. But now we know.
What a fall.
Well, I mean, some of us knew. Some of us knew.
Look, David had been portrayed as nothing but super likable this whole time.
Well, I'm just
Sure.
I don't fully agree with that take, but hey, you know what? Everyone has their own perceptions. It's just some of them are more wrong than others. And this is coming from someone who had David smack dab in the middle. And you know what? I'm going to save my revised dank down for the end of the podcast because the people need to look forward to something.
Yeah, true.
Out of everyone, the listener average was actually the rank down that had them the lowest, that had David the lowest. So, good on our listeners.
I saw at least one comment that we got from last week that I can't remember who commented on it, but it was just ripping David apart. It was pretty funny.
Basically, I will hate this season if David wins. And that brought a smile to my face. Even if, in real life, David is probably a nice enough guy.
Yeah.
But just seeing the comment made me giggle. So,
Well,
David, big fan of the podcast. This isn't about you personally.
I got good news for whoever commented on that. I don't think you're going to hate this season.
It's looking good.
It's looking good. All right, should we get into this episode?
Let's do it.
So, we're going to get back from Tribal Council. Chrissy is going to try and do damage control after her speech against the strong players at the previous Tribal Council. Says she was just smack talking. This is going to do her no good, and she's going to go home tonight, partially because of this. Be careful what you say and how you say it.
Yeah, we ripped her
Good rule for
last.
life.
We ripped her last episode, basically saying, what's the benefit to this? Yeah, you might be painting a target on someone's back. That target's already there. People are not so oblivious to what's going on that they need a reminder telling them that, Joe's a big threat in this game.
The only thing I want to bring up, and it might come up again later, so if I repeat myself, I apologize. I'm glad that Joe isn't too hung up on this with Chrissy early on. It's like, I'm going to keep an eye on this, but I'm not going to let this turn into a Bruce and Couture level of obsession.
Yep. He keeps it quiet. Like, he'll remember that. You said that, but he doesn't bring it up constantly.
And for Chrissy's part, I think what she did was fine enough, but I don't think Chrissy is a very talented liar, and I think everyone knew she kind of meant it.
Yep.
And also, if you're going to claim, ignorance or gameplay, you can't immediately turn around and explode again at the next tribal council.
Yep.
So, whoops.
So we have our Honesty Alliance, and David wants to bring Mary into the fold to make it a strong 6 instead of a strong 5. Shaheen is a little hesitant. He'd rather have Camilla in the Honesty Alliance than Mary. So we have a little bit... We could make it a strong 7. How about them apples?
That would work.
Too. That's the simple solution. We'll just make it a 7.
Yeah, and that would, at this point, be excluding Chrissy, Mitch,
and Star.
And Star. Star has the loggy ties, so that seems more unlikely. And Mitch, everyone still seems to kind of keep him on the outs throughout this episode and last episode, obviously leading into this one as well. I can see making it a strong 7, but what's a crowd?
Well, and also, like, what's the benefit of that? For a handful of people, there's a benefit to having 7 people, but the 3 people that you named just there, Mitch could be maybe considered a little bit of a threat, but then, you have Chrissy and Star, so it's like, okay, we're all ganging up on people who we might want to bring to the end. That's an idea. So maybe you don't want to have 7 people together right now.
I mean, it would be lip service. Like, you're obviously going to turn on each other, but like they'll also get you through another vote. Maybe you need to take out like a Mitch.
For the record, I don't hate this idea necessarily for David or Shaheen, and to the idea of making it a strong 7. If all of your final 3 are strong and honest, guess what? No one is. That is not a benefit to your game. Like, that's the syndrome rule. If everyone's super, then no one is. If everyone's strong and honest, then no one is. Who played the best game?
It's a wash.
Yeah.
Immunity challenge, we're going to get like the big marathon challenge that we've been doing since in this new era. They have to divide into pairs, and then this group decides to pick their own pairs. I don't remember who suggested doing that. It might have been Joe.
Yeah, it was Joe.
He's the first one to throw out a name. Don't do this. Make it random. You don't want to draw any attention to yourself, and you don't know what the challenge is going to be. So, yeah, it might help you a little bit, might not. But you're better off just making it completely random, doing your best, and yeah.
In theory, I didn't dislike what Joe was saying because he actually had a reason behind it. Like, he's like, oh, yeah, I wanted people to pick their own partners so alliances were exposed. But the way that he did it, like, kind of seemed like, okay, Joe, like, what are you trying to do? And then by no fault of his own, like, the last person to just put out a name was him and Eva. So the 2 of them just got paired together.
They were second to last.
Okay.
Yeah, we never got told about Mitch and Star.
Yeah, Mitch and Star are the last 2.
Yeah, Star literally was not even mentioned in this discussion yet again. It's like she was invisible. Where is Star?
It's like, I guess that was a planet, but I was going to say Star's kind of like Camino in Star Wars. There's a missing planet. There's a missing star.
The archives are incomplete.
The archives are incomplete.
That's an old meme, sir, but it checks out. Wow.
I may not like Star Wars very much, but I know my memes and references.
It's a trap.
It's a tarp.
It's a tarp. They won one of those earlier this season. That was their reaction when Jeff revealed it. It's a tarp.
I plan on doing exactly that on Survivor. It's a tarp.
So, Shaheen is going to pick Camilla, which that's going to throw up a lot of red flags. Like I said, don't fall for this. Say, like, I want to do random. Let's just do random. Push for the random. That way it doesn't reveal anything. That's the thing I like. We play board games in this friend group. One in particular, Spy Alley. And I have a strategy where I lean into the randomness so I don't reveal my identity. Josh hates this strategy because it's effective.
And it makes it not fun to play the game. Which I would recommend on Survivor. Like, on Survivor, great, do it, because like it's just like, okay, we're just gonna play through this game that we have in front of us, and basically middle finger production. That's perfect in the game of Survivor.
Not in Spy Alley though, right?
No. What's the point?
Make it easier for me to win. That's the point.
Just the point is winning. It's all about winning.
If
it's not about the friends
special,
you make along the way.
If everyone's special, no one's special. If everyone's just going by random rules, then there's no point.
Then there's no fun.
David's going to pick Mary. Kyle's going to pick Chrissy. You know, he didn't want to pick Camilla because he wants to keep the relationship hidden still. Eva picks Joe, and that leaves Mitch and Star. Eva, Kyle, David, and Joe are going to kind of discuss Chrissy's comments and how they're all like, let's get rid of her. We don't like that. It's fair. And so they're going to like fill in Mary and Shaheen. So everyone is kind of leaning towards taking out Chrissy at this point.
For the record, this feels like something that an honesty, integrity alliance would do. If you are going for a more Survivor gameplay kind of move, it shouldn't be Chrissy, because Chrissy is not someone who's galvanizing the people. She's delivered now a couple speeches about what the smart thing is to do and to gang up against the strong people, and it's not... nobody is swayed.
No.
Her opinions mean nothing. So, like, this isn't how I would play Survivor, but if I'm in the strong person alliance like this makes sense.
This is good for like Joe and Eva. Yeah, let's get rid of Chrissy. Someone on the bottom who wants me out, and then I stay on the top. Mitch wants to get the Siva alliance back together and bring in Mary and take out a Logie member. Fair. That is a great idea.
For like Mitch, and really anyone who's not in this like main, you guys keep saying like the honest integrity alliance. It almost seems like it's like kind of a little bit of a meathead alliance, you know, with a couple outliers, mostly just because, you know, David kind of really tries to defend this later on in Tribal Council. But I think that Mitch's approach is really good, just because you're not gonna get a giant blind side to happen against these guys, so you have to find some other connection to make. Original Tribe seems like a good enough one to me.
Mitch makes a great pitch. Camilla's actually wants to do it, but David does not. So this is not going to go anywhere.
And Kyle was hesitant at best.
Yeah.
And I think it's because he knows that David is... he may not be the linchpin, but he's like a nexus point.
Yep.
They are certainly letting David drive right now because he has the ego to want to do it.
I would say he's the linchpin between... Because he's Siga and he's huge. So yeah, I would say he's the linchpin of this group.
Fair enough.
I would sign off on that. We're going to go to the immunity challenge. The twist is the first two pairs, so the first 4 players, they're going to be sent on a journey where their vote is at risk. We've seen this before, not quite this setup, but this, you know, similar stuff to this. Mitch, Star, Shaheen, and Camilla are the first 4 out, so they have to go on a journey. The top 4 are David, Mary, Joe, and Eva. They're going to get a reward, tacos, and they get to compete for individual immunity, so that means Kyle and Chrissy get squat. They don't lose their vote, but they don't get reward.
They get to keep their vote.
Yep.
They get to avoid production screwed.
Yes.
And they just get to float off into the island just by themselves, be the only ones there.
Yep. And then Eva is going to end up winning individual immunity. Chrissy and Kyle, when they get back to camp, it's just the 2 of them. So they're going to suggest maybe we can split up Joe and Eva. But Eva's got immunity and an idol. Maybe Shaheen would be a safer vote to avoid the idol. This is a great plan. I'm surprised we don't get this brought up again, because this is a good idea. But Shaheen's name never gets mentioned again until Chrissy randomly votes for him at Tribal Council.
Well, I think the reason it doesn't is because the people who are planting the Shaheen seeds right now are predominantly Kyle and Camilla. But weirdly enough, whether it's because David was sniffing a connection between Kyle and Camilla sooner, or because he claims it was because Shaheen and Camilla were together in the challenge, he starts targeting Camilla. That puts Kyle and Camilla on their back foot. You can play offense and defense at the same time, and Shaheen still may have been a better push and try to work with Chrissy and Mitch. People on the bottom,
Yep.
Try and get enough numbers to go against Shaheen instead. You don't have to work with Eva, Joe, and David to make this work.
We're going to be presented with our 2 options tonight as Chrissy and Camilla. And it's like, there's other options maybe. It was just surprising to me that no one had seen presented a 3rd option.
To me, I like a few of the people that we have on this season. I think as of right now, Kyle and Camilla and Shaheen might be my 3 favorite game acumen-wise left in the game. And Kyle and Camilla are with each other. I think a great Survivor player in execution gets Shaheen to go home tonight. Mm-hmm. If you are Kyle and Camilla, we're flipping it on Camilla. We're not going to do that. We're going to flip it on Shaheen and do what we want to do, and we'll deal with David later.
So we're going to go to the journey. And the competition, for any Mario Party fans out there, Mario Party 2, there's a minigame called Honeycomb Havoc. It's the exact same game as this. And this made me so happy to see. Just like, that's a Mario Party minigame. And this was, you know, I'm a little hesitant about these kind of things, but I honestly really liked this challenge a lot. I thought this was fun because they had to basically there was white balls and red balls, and you didn't want to get the red balls. And if you got 3 red balls, you lose your vote. And you could pick 1 or 2 balls at a time, and you were trying to strategically make the red ball land on somebody else or just avoid it yourself. So this was really fun, I thought.
A slightly more difficult coconut chop, and I always like that. I don't love us messing with the votes, but I'm glad we don't have 3 people losing their votes. Like, okay, if you're gonna do this, I'm glad we're just losing 1.
And it was a challenge, not just like it was like a 4-way challenge,
right? And we've seen there be consequences to coconut chops in the past. I mean, it was literal immunity challenges early on, and then Josh and I said we don't like this, and Survivor heard us retrospectively, went back in time, and then gave us only reward challenge coconut chops.
And this was like a middle ground.
Yes, this is a middle ground, so I did not mind it.
I actually loved this aspect of it just because I'm okay with messing with the vote a little bit. The first time we split up in this challenge format where we were splitting off the people who got last place, I think we lost. Didn't we lose like 3 votes?
All 3 lost their
crazy.
votes and had to earn it back.
Yeah, and then it's kind of progressed. It's kind of pulled itself back slowly the last few seasons where it's like, oh, only 2 people, or like, oh, like 3 people could, but then no one lost their vote. Like very like chance timey. This I think is the perfect mix because like not even at most, guaranteed 1 person is going to be losing their vote here, but only 1 person, and it could be any one of 4 people.
And there's a strategic play to decide who.
Yeah, and it's not just luck based like you guys were saying. There's actual like alliances that can come into play here, and it didn't start out that way. It took like a round or 2 for people to kind of recognize that, but then I think it was Mitch and Camilla kind of like made eye contact and were like silently communicating back and forth like, oh yeah, like we're gonna go for a star here because someone has to lose. Why do we want it to be us?
Yep. And that was great from the 2 of them. They worked together silently and managed to get Star to lose her vote. It was wonderful. I believe the trick is you want to always try to have a multiple of 3 before the next red ball. So that way when it gets towards you, it can't be you. You can pick the 1 or the 2, and then you decide who is. So the goal is to try and have it in multiples of 3 away from you.
I feel like the goal would be n-1. So however many people are playing the game, that's how many.
Yeah, just in case in the future there's not 4 people. Like if there are only 3 people playing,
then it's 2. If there's 5 people playing, it'd be 4.
Yeah.
So it's like n-1.
So round 1 is, there's only 1 round here.
Yes.
So that's why I didn't.
Oh, I understand. Okay.
It's not. It's Honeycomb Havoc. Yeah, it keeps going all the way till there's 1 person left, but this was only 1 person.
Yes.
So that's why I didn't.
Who knows? It might be different though in the future.
It might be different though in the future. So yeah, in the future, you want to have the do math count. And then if you can't see, like at the very beginning, you couldn't see the first red ball, is just take 1. You don't want to get too far ahead of yourself, and just give yourself a little bit more space to maneuver. That 1 ball might save you. I played a lot of Honeycomb Havoc.
I played a lot of Mario Party.
Lots.
And Honeycomb Havoc is one of the best mini games. Like it is fun. And that one, instead of a red ball, you get a beehive, and then you get stung by bees. So at least Survivor didn't do that to them. So Star loses her vote. On the reward, Eva is going to find a clue. She keeps it hidden. And eventually we're going to find out that it is some sort of advantage. The next night, so in the next episode, she's going to have to sneak out of camp to go get something. But that is for next time. But good for her for keeping this private, because as she tells us, her entire game is very public. Everyone knows she's an idol. Everyone knows how close she is to Joe. Having something hidden is great.
Oh, yeah.
But the rest of the reward is David and Mary, they're tight now. They want to throw out Camilla's name instead of Chrissy because they are scared that Camilla and Shaheen are close. And they want to make it harder for Shaheen to flip on them. This is their pitch to Joe and Eva.
Why not just take out Shaheen?
Because Joe and Eva are close to Shaheen, so they probably wouldn't go for that. I don't mind their pitch for Camilla. Like, the pitch itself isn't bad.
Sure.
Like, it's a decent, and you have no idea how close Kyle and Camilla are. This is not a bad pitch, and it's not really bad reasoning.
I mean, because, from their viewpoint, it's a tight 5, and, everyone else is just kind of on the outside. So if it's Chrissy, if it's Camilla, if it's, whoever else they might bring in, who cares?
Yeah, who cares? The way especially David, respond when there's pushback later, that's the problem.
And I would like to jump in because we did have a question about reward from Dawson on Spotify. And they asked, if you were tasked with cooking a meal of your choice for a Survivor reward, what would you choose?
Do we have to cook it ourselves, or do we get to have
I think so. I think you have to cook it, but it's like you could make tacos, you could make burgers, whatever it is, you have to make it, but you're on the island, you're on Survivor, like this is
Steak
your
and peanut butter.
food that you get to eat on your reward.
Steak and peanut butter. Not because I like those two things together, because protein. I want a steak, and peanut butter is like really helpful. So steak and peanut butter.
Joe DeCampo just felt a disturbance in the force.
Well, don't overeat. One steak is fine. Have 2 kebabs instead of 7 or whatever he had. But yeah, if I'm cooking, let's do peanut butter sandwiches. Because you don't want me cooking, first of all, unless it's chili. Second of all, peanut butter is very helpful.
I think you could have something a little bit better and still get the same vibe. Like what about like a steak stroganoff? You could still get your steak, some pasta, like you got some carbs in there.
Yeah, but I don't think you want that sauce. I don't think that sauce is going to help you.
Yeah, but it tastes good.
Yeah, but we want what helps you and tastes good. That's what we want here. That's the ideal reward. Like, I see this like pastries and chocolate reward. I'm like, I don't want that. Like, yeah, I'm sure it will taste good on the island, but I feel like it just make you sick.
Probably. I do agree that you need some sort of like good protein in there, but like Ryan, I think you need more carbs in there just to kind of replenish that side of things. And I don't think just steak and peanut butter is going to do it.
Fine bread.
I want something that is slightly imbalanced in the macros. I want a little bit of carbs, I want a lot of protein, and I want more fat than carbs, because both of those are energy stores or larger amounts of like body recovery, things that you're going to need. And then having a little carbs will give you a good morale boost in the near term. So weirdly enough, I'm kind of landing like on a steak stroganoff as well, because sometimes you get chickens on Survivor. There's fish on Survivor. I love tikka masala. So like if it's just like, well, but I don't want to eat rice. Are you kidding me? I'd be so sick of rice.
What about like a stew? A stew with like
Depends on
some steak, some
Ooh.
potatoes, some carrots.
You know what? Like
still
an
got a good
Irish
gravy.
stew.
That'd be pretty good.
Do we have access to a crock pot?
I would take an Irish stew. That would be delicious.
Thanks for the question, Dawson.
Thank you for the question. Good question. All right, so Joe and Kyle are going to talk. Joe says, like, hey, they want to take out Camilla. And Kyle's like, uh-oh. And Kyle's going to reveal that Chrissy wants you out, Joe. And Joe's like, uh-oh.
Why didn't you lead with that?
But like, Joe, you should know that.
Yeah.
Like, she told you.
But she's still going. She's still pushing for it.
Yeah, there is a difference between just mentioning it at Tribal as like a throwaway and being like, okay, no, like we're coming up on a vote here right away. I want Joe.
She means it. So Kyle and David are going to talk. And it doesn't really go well. David wants Camilla out, and he thinks it's a no-brainer. And Kyle says, well, I don't know about that one. Why Camilla? And still wants to push for Chrissy. And Kyle's points are going to be, Camilla has worked with them and voted for him. He's not going to bring up the secret alliance, obviously they have, but like, we worked with Camilla, why take her out? Or Chrissy's actively gunning for all of us. He makes good points, but it's going to make David and Mary even like really suspicious of Kyle eventually. And so while Kyle is effective in this episode, he's going to get his way. I definitely think he increased his target.
Yeah, that's going to happen. That's going to happen when you're trying to protect your number one, and especially when you're trying to do it subtly without people finding out. It works out, and I think that enough happened in this episode to where like there's other big threats out there. We didn't take out a giant threat here, so I think Kyle's still going to be in a pretty good position to where he doesn't, right now at least, have to worry about that.
So Kyle's going to go to Joe, and the two of them are on the same page. They want Chrissy out. So they're going to get the gang together with them, Mary, Eva, and David to talk about what to do. Mary, Eva, and David all want Camilla. So Joe's like, well, I guess we're outvoted. I guess they'll hop on the Camilla train. So Kyle's like, uh-oh. And David and Kyle, they get into it. David gets a little heated and a little aggressive, aggro.
Aggro's the word.
Like, it feels like you're just trying to protect Camilla. Why are you trying to protect Camilla there? What's the problem? This is super easy. And David is going to come to the conclusion, like, maybe they're closer than we all suspect, and that's fine, but it's just David is kind of a jerk about it. Bring it down like 6 notches, dude.
You got the results that you weren't expecting, so I think he got lucky here that maybe, and we don't even know yet if there's going to be anything else that comes from this, but you got lucky that something else happened here. Alternate universe, put yourself on a different season with different players who aren't being, who aren't lying about who their number one is. And you just completely blow up your game and ruin your relationship with everyone except for Mary that you're trying to work with. So I don't know what the benefit of this is.
This is hard. Mary is making the right move because I think based on where Mary is in the game, she needs to keep the Christies around. And well, understanding that she can't go for any of like the super strong guys right now, Camilla's kind of the next best option for Mary. So I think this is a very smart play for her to push for Camilla. David, I can see it because he's in the thick of it. He's in the strong person alliance. And weirdly enough, when Kyle starts to push back this much on Camilla, because we're talking so much about how David is handling this poorly, there's no real discussion here on what Kyle has done. The more Kyle wants to defend Camilla, the more, if I'm David, that I think I want Camilla gone, because he thought that he was cutting up Shahin and Camilla because they both have some tricksy bones in their bodies. Oh, wait, maybe Kyle and Camilla are closer than we thought. A good Survivor player then goes back to Joe and the rest of them says, we need to make sure that Kyle and Camilla are split up as well as Shahin and Camilla.
Exactly right.
Because I don't really feel like letting Kyle off the hook. I think Kyle, based on his position in the strong person alliance, should maybe consider letting Camilla go right here. I know that she is his true number one, but with this strong of a consensus and you being socially talented, we've seen it, you need to be able to trust yourself at some point and pick a direction. You're running out of options even if you do force Camilla to stay today.
I think there are options in between those two things, either fighting for Camilla or letting her go. I think Kyle, a couple of routes Kyle could have gone, pick somebody else. I think Mary might have been someone to bring up, or David even, but I think Mary would have been a really good one. Say, why is David just bringing Mary into this? Why are we letting these two dictate everything? Pitch that to Joe and Eva. Like, maybe we take out Mary because David's getting a little big for his britches and he's trying to bring Mary along, and why do we suddenly have a strong 6 instead of a strong 5? Who decided we could just bring Mary? And that was David's call. That would have been a good pitch. Maybe he could have rallied some other people up from the bottom and maybe targeted a Shaheen. There were other options in between sticking his neck out so far for Camilla and just letting her go.
And I agree with everything you're saying. And ultimately what I'm saying is, Kyle, you're trying really hard to keep all your options open when by the very nature of attrition, you have fewer options as the game goes on. So I think you fight, but I don't think you maybe fight as hard as what we saw, especially when you're bumping into someone who's torpedoing their own game. Like, okay, maybe I don't keep Camilla here, but David can't beat me anymore.
Yeah, super align with David and go to the end with him.
Exactly. So I just want to talk about that, but that's my question I want to throw to listeners. If you were dropped into Kyle's shoes, the vote has been switched to Camilla, how hard do you push to keep Camilla at this point in the game with all the options laid out in front of you? So go on Spotify right now, take 15 seconds, and let us know. Did Kyle push too hard? Did he push just right? Is there a car behind door number 3 or 4 that we haven't talked about here? Leave that comment. So thank you.
So last thing before Tribal Council, Kyle's going to approach both Shaheen and Joe to try and make this happen, to make sure Camilla doesn't go home. And apparently it works. We don't get much of that. We're going to go to Tribal Council, where Chrissy is once again going to pitch taking out the strongest players. Now, the time or the place, Chrissy, this should have been at camp. Don't say this at Tribal Council. This is not good. And David is going to end up getting into it with her because he's offended that she doesn't seem... Basically, she's like, all the strong players are aligning together, all the physical threats. And he's like, but people align for all sorts of different connections and reasons. Why are we not allowed to do that? Shut up, David. Like, no one's saying you're not allowed to do it. It's just... when you see a group of people who have similar attributes who are all aligning, and somebody who's not in that group is like, I don't like that, let's break that up. Like, what do you expect to happen? David gets
aggro.
David gets aggro, and it's very dumb. Neither of them handle this well. This never should have happened. But yeah, David really gets into it. Camilla's going to point out, like, I think some people are forgetting about jury management. Yes.
And then he immediately argues with her.
Yeah, and he gets snippy with her too. So yeah, David, not great.
It's frustrating because David isn't wrong when it comes to how many seasons, basically every season in the history of Survivor, you see, these big giant guys get picked off early on in the post-merge meat shields, or they're just used as meat shields for this kind of middle part of the post-merge to, catapult other people into the final 4, final 5. So he 100% has a point. He's just terrible at communicating his point because it seems very just victim-y and everyone's against us, and trying to have it be, you're just targeting this big group of guys just for the sake of doing it. Like, no, like, she's just playing the game. Cool your head.
I think the reason this is a really bad look is because once you're in that alliance, like whatever it is, whether it's the family, whether it's the Black Widow Brigade, or you're the Tagi, once you're in power, any shade you throw at the people fighting for their game lives, that is a punch down.
Yep.
It's borderline bullying, but like he didn't quite cross that threshold, but he's punching down for sure. Just acknowledge the fact that right now you are in power and they are going to play their game. To lash out like this, it feels like it's coming from somebody who has some unresolved insecurities. I'm not a therapist. I'm not going to dig down into David's psyche on this, but it is something that I think the other players should note. And if they're really good players, they can use this kind of observation to their advantage.
Maybe take David to the end.
You can maybe beat him.
It's going to be 8 votes for Chrissy, 1 vote for Shaheen. Was this the right move? Man, this is a weird one. Because we're presented Chrissy or Camilla, and I'm thinking, I think it should have been like a Mary or a David or maybe even Shaheen. I don't think anyone brought up the right move tonight. So I don't know 100% what the right move was, but I know this wasn't it. Why take out Chrissy? She wasn't winning.
Yeah, I'm going no here, and that's because I actually think that going forward, especially now that there's been so much pushback between both David and Kyle, I think that this 5 is dead after
I think so too.
after this vote. And that's not just because of what we saw in the next time on Survivor. Based off of the pure nature of the game of Survivor, I think that this 5 is dead going forward. So what do? You make a new 5. I think that that 5 should be Kyle and Camilla, Joe and Eva, and Shaheen. And they take out David here. Take out David, and then, you can basically take out the rest of the other 4 if you really want to, like, take it that far and just have that be the final 5, or maybe you switch it up again after that. But just voting block this thing and form a new alliance that's going to be the majority alliance going forward. I don't hate the idea of Mary being the next one as well, but just because David is this big dude, big personality, who knows how that can play into challenges, take him out now.
I feel like what you're saying, Josh, I would believe that for next episode, because ultimately when you're having these arguments on the beach on the eve of a vote out, I think that our 2 realistic options here are what we were presented with. I'm kind of with, like, I'm with both of you guys on like a game theory level, but with the pieces in play this particular time, we were presented with the option of Chrissy or Camilla. And I gotta be honest, I think that Camilla was the right move. I think switching it to Chrissy was not in everybody's best interest because she was, in my opinion, at the bottom of most likely to win the game. There are plenty of people who are on the outskirts of the Strong Person Alliance who would be more than happy to see Camilla go and Chrissy stay in that event. And Chrissy isn't galvanizing anything crazy. And plus, what her motives are. Camilla's a little bit more, she's a little more nuanced. She can keep a secret, and she's proven that she can do so. So I think it was the wrong move between the 2 that we were presented with.
The one thing that I'll push back a little bit on that is what happens next. You take out Camilla, what happens after that?
Same position, except you have somebody okay, optics, it's exactly the same. You still have your honesty, integrity alliance, and you can keep whittling down to whether it's a 7 or a 6. I don't care. You can keep whittling down. But in actual gameplay issues, okay, let's say Shaheen and Camilla had a connection. That's severed. Kyle and Camilla actually have a connection. That's severed. The game opens up more because somebody who is a little bit more socially apt has been now taken out. So to me, Camilla's probably the best option for everybody here on the top.
I just think that it'd be really hard for that 5 or 6 or whatever to vote together again after this if Camilla's the one to go home.
Chrissy went home, and it's still going to be hard for them to vote together again.
But I think we're all in agreement this was the wrong move.
Yeah.
What did social media have to say?
So according to social media, roughly 55% of people said that no, basically the wrong person went home tonight. But it was close.
I can live with this.
Very close.
They're right, but it's a little too close. All right, let's get into best and worst player of the episode. Josh, kick us off. Who is the best player of the episode?
I had Eva here just because, one immunity, got a clue to an advantage that will probably, like, these sneaking out at night ones almost always go, like, flawlessly as long as you don't, like, royally mess it up. So they'll have that. in the majority alliance. Yeah, all thumbs up from Eva's point of view. Still has the idol, hasn't played that, and her closest alliance member, is still in there as well. So like I have a really hard time seeing how Joe and Eva get split up anytime in the next few votes.
I gave her an honorable mention. My best goes to Camilla. I love the way she worked with Mitch to make sure Star lost her vote and not either of them. And then I think I just want to give her credit for all of her social bonding with Kyle. This saved her. She was going, Kyle saved her, so that all came together. So this is kind of a cumulative a little bit because it paid off for her here. So I'm going to give my best to Camilla.
I agree with Josh, but it's only a light agree. Like, everything you said about Camilla is true, but for me, when you're playing well from the top and your position only strengthened at the end of an episode, it's like, everyone has every reason to take a shot at you, and they either didn't or couldn't.
Yep.
Or both. So I'm giving Eva the credit where it's due. The only thing that would make this upcoming challenge better is if Tony pops out of his spy shack, spits on some fire soot, and paints it on her face. This is what he did with Sarah Lucina in Winners at War. Because Sarah Lucina had to sneak out of camp in that one, and he spits on soot, and they give her war paint.
Oh my gosh,
sneak out of camp.
Right. Wow.
What are you talking about?
It's been a while.
Yeah, these sneaking out of camp things, no one's ever been caught. All you got to do is get up and say, I got to pee.
Yeah,
if anybody asks.
The only times if you have to sneak, if you have to get up in the middle of the night and do something around camp.
Yeah,
then
that's the hard part.
Then something could happen.
But if you just have to go down the beach, all you have to say is I got diarrhea. No one's going to ask you more questions.
From eating what? Huh? Tacos.
Tacos. Believable. Worst player of the episode for me is David. Horrible social game. He had some good ideas, but his execution was terrible. Getting into it with Chrissy was bad. I think this is so bad that he plummets all the way to can't win.
I don't give it to David. He still is, I think, making it more difficult for him to win amongst the members of the Honesty Integrity Alliance. But I think there is somebody else who was already pretty low who lost a person that they could beat, and that was Mary. She was pushing for Camilla to go home, and she did not get her way. And I think this is going to keep Mary from being able to get over the hump because she doesn't have almost anybody left in the game where if they manage to make it to the end, that they have less of a resume than she does. So just by very way of wanting something, not being able to get it, I like that she made a connection with David. That's fine, but that's not enough to do any work for you right now, I think. She's kind of a coattail rider at this point.
I disagree, but I'll explain why later.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
I'm giving it to David. Honestly, I think Mary did basically as much as she could, short of just, getting everyone together as just all the outsiders together instead and figuring out a way to actually take out someone like a Joe. I don't know how she would have done that, so I think that she did everything she could here. David tanked his game, and I had him already pretty low in my jank downs, but he went down further, so that'll be fun to talk about.
All right. Well, before we get into that, let's go into who is going next. Derek, kick us off. Who's next out of this game?
I got a bold one for you. I think that Kyle maybe popped his head up a little too far, and he might be the first to fall of the quote-unquote strong person alliance. So while I can see Josh's ideal four, I can see it being Vula 2.0 with Shahin, Joe, Kyle, Camilla, plus Eva as a final five. But if that's going to break, I think it'll be broken here. How does this alliance fracture? I'm not sure, and I think Kyle maybe popped his head up too high. So I'm going to say Kyle today.
Josh?
I forgot that five. Yeah. I'm still hoping for that final four plus Eva. I'm going David. I think that, it's people are too close to it to see how badly his game might be hurt and that they can beat him in the end, and they're just going to take him out. So and it's, that big threat, strike while the iron's hot, take him out now. It's the perfect time to do it because anyone else who's kind of on the bottom is going to be more than willing to do that.
I agree with Josh. I think there's going to be a split here. We're going to have a civil war situation going on. I think it's going to be Kyle and Joe on one side versus David on the other. And I was looking down the list who would side with who. I think Kyle and Joe will be able to get the numbers. I think David goes out. If David wins immunity, Mary goes out. But I'm going to go David. All right, let's get into our rank downs, jank downs, dank downs, and lank downs. Who cannot win this game.
And before we go, I just want to recap what our listener average was from last week, since we all obviously talked about ours on the episode. But as submitted by listeners from top to bottom, they had them ranked Kyle, followed by Camilla, then Joe, then Mitch, then Shaheen, then Eva, then David, then Mary, then Star, and Chrissy at the bottom.
Okay. All right, Josh. Now we're into this week. We can take Chrissy off the board. Give us your jank down.
Yeah, and if people remember, Chrissy was in my very dead last spot. So that means that there's going to be a new person who can't win this game. So again, from the top, I have Joe staying in the top spot. I have Eva actually moving up to number 2. And then Kyle, Camilla, Shaheen, Mitch, Mary, David, Star. So really the only movement for me, Eva moved up a little bit, and then David plummeted.
Okay. Yeah, mine similar to last week. I didn't really change much except that obviously Chris gets dropped. Someone maybe not. David gets plucked out and dropped to the bottom. But well, here we go. Joe, Eva, Kyle, Camilla, Shaheen, Mitch. Bottom 3 are Mary, Star, and David. I have David at the very bottom now. Yeah, it's not good. So this is why I don't give Mary worst player of the episode, because David tanked so hard that Mary could still win, and David can't, I think. So my 2 who cannot win this game are Star and David.
And Star is above David for you?
So I have Star above David at this point, because everyone at least likes Star. Yeah. I think David made a couple of enemies now.
I like to see a couple episodes of Chaos before I really like to shake up one person's particular position. I have Joe, Shaheen, Kyle, Eva, David is still right in the middle, Camilla, Mitch, Star, and Mary. And mostly because if David makes it to the end, I think with a lot of those other people, they didn't have enough agency in their games to justify a win over a jury that's filled with strong people who like the fact that they weren't just meat shields at the merge. That said, if David remains an aggro agent of chaos next week, you will see significant movement. He is on probation at the 5 spot for me.
So you basically didn't change anything.
I swapped Camilla and Mitch.
Camilla.
Yes, I did.
That's crazy.
That's insane.
That's nuts.
That's fine. That's fine.
We talked
Classic
earlier, like
Derek.
maybe Ryan moves his flag too often, and someone doesn't move their flag often enough.
I'm asking for one more episode of this type of aggro behavior before I make a significant movement.
That is nuts.
Because he is in control of the game, and it's not Russell levels of bad.
I don't know if he is in control of the game anymore.
He might not be, but I'll find out next episode, and I will hurt him for it. I will hurt his position on this list if that's the case.
Also, Star above Mary, too, is kind of interesting.
Yeah. Who are your bottom 3 again?
Mitch, Star, and Mary. The reason I have Star above Mary is because Star has all of original Logie that would, I think, be able to pull for her, that would need to end up in the jury.
I think Derek, I think we need to talk about your drinking problem. You're drinking too much of that caffeinated water, and it's messed with your brain.
This isn't caffeinated.
Whatever that is. I don't remember what it's called. Crystal Light?
Yeah, it's Crystal Light
I think you're drinking too much Crystal Light lemonade, and it's messing with your brain.
Hate me all you want.
It's not hate, it's WTF. It's that.
Mary. Nobody on the jury who can sympathize with her game except for Cedric, and Cedric's not changing any minds. Star. She's done virtually nothing, but at least she has the Logie connections. And honestly, she is really funny, and she is just being severely under-edited. She's not winning this game out of editology, pure and simple. Mitch. He tried to get something together today that made sense for a lot of people on the bottom and a lot of people who are on the top, also in Siva. And he couldn't get it done because they don't care. He has no pull. He has no agency. Camilla. Very, very under the radar on a season where being over the radar is considered a good thing. And then we have David, who is at the very bottom of what I just described, and he could fall very far if he messes up again. And then after that, pick your order of Joe, Shaheen, Kyle, and Eva at the top, and I really don't care at that point. This is how I see it. This is just how I see it.
I'm happy
I have
for
my
you,
reasons.
I think you should get your vision checked. All right. Last thing we got to do is check in with our survivor pool.
Yeah.
Josh, give us the update.
So, as a reminder, last week Ryan picked David and Derek picked Star.
I'm very glad I picked David last week. Holy crap.
Nice call. And neither of you had picked Chrissy. So, whoops. And none of our listeners picked Chrissy this last week. So all of our listeners who were remaining are still in.
You know what? Good.
And
I'm glad no one picked Chrissy.
And we are down low enough to where I will mention off who you guys have left. Ryan, the only people you have left, it's getting down there, are Joe, Star, and Mary. Derek, you have Joe, Shaheen, Mitch, and Kyle.
Well, I'll start us off. I'm going to take Star because you think if David wins immunity, I think Mary's gone. And I think there might be a chance that David rallies it against Joe. I think that's always a possibility. So I think the person who is safest here is Star. So I'm going to go with her.
Wherever the target ends up next week, I don't think it's going to land on Mitch. So I'm going to go ahead and pick Mitch today.
Fair. It's a good pick.
If I were in your shoes, I think I would have picked Joe, Derek, just because I think he does have the shield of Eva's idol for a little bit longer.
I'm aware of that, and I intend on continuing to try and keep something close to the vest.
All right, sorry, I'm playing Derek.
No. Like these are fair considerations, and it's not like Ryan can do anything about it.
Yeah.
He can't play defense.
Nope. All right. Well, that is episode 8. Guys, social media.
Yeah, you can follow us basically everywhere at Castaway Pod. If you want to watch videos, Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok is Castaway Consultants. And we have a website where we post all the episodes if you want to search for them a little bit easier on there. It's thecastawayconsultants.com. And I also repost Ryan's blogs on there as well.
And then over on Spotify, this is my order of preference. Those of you in the pool, give us your Survivor pool pick. I want your length downs so that we can keep aggregating our listener average. And then I gave my listener question earlier in the episode. So if you're feeling like giving us 3 responses, we'll take all those. But in order, Survivor pool, length down, listener question. Thank you so much.
And then one call to action from me. Jeff gave out hey, you can vote on season 50 this week. I don't think the first 2 questions matter very much. They're more aesthetic or whatever. Who cares? The third one, though, the question is, do you want more twists or less twists? And my call to action would be, I would like people to vote for fewer twists, just to send a message to production that there are good twists. Don't get me wrong. I would just like fewer of them in this new era of Survivor. And I would just like that message to Jeff, like, we don't need to have a new twist every week. We can have a normal episode. That's great. That's fun. So even if you do like the twists, which I like some of them, I would still ask for your vote to go for fewer twists just to send the message.
I vote give them their tribe supplies because I don't like punitive challenges, and that would imply that they're not doing punitive challenges. So I have a strong opinion about number 3. I have an opinion about number 2. I have an opinion about number 1, but that's aesthetic. So
yeah, that's aesthetic, and I agree with the camp supplies things. Let's make it a little more even.
Yeah, I agreed on the camp supplies. Give it to them. Derek, what was your opinion on 3?
No, fewer twists.
Oh, see,
fewer
I
twists.
I actually disagree with you guys just because I want fewer like weird advantages and messing with the votes and everything like that. But twists, I like twists. Good players are able to work with twists. Now, using advantages and everything along with that's kind of where you start to lose me. But I think really good players need to be adaptable in those moments.
Josh, this is not a 3 option. This is not a 3-party system. This is a 2-party system. And voting for the twist is just gonna be like, oh, cool, knowledge is power's back, baby. So
see,
everyone
that is an advantage.
Nope. Everyone ignore Josh. He's so wrong. He cannot possibly be more wrong.
We already voted on advantages.
No, Josh, either get on board or I'm editing you out of this episode. I do not endorse this because they will take that as more twists, and that includes advantages.
You know what's interesting though? In the last round of questions, they already asked do you want a tribe swap or no tribe swap? That's a twist. So why are we dividing this up into 2 questions?
Yeah,
they will take that as twists equal advantages. That's what they're going to do. So, Josh, do you want to revise your statement?
Yes, I
don't
want advantages. I don't want twists. Everything that Ryan says is correct.
Thank you. That is the correct answer. And then, like I said, now, Josh, I understand what you're saying. In all honesty, I do like some of this stuff. Not all of it. But again, I think production needs to hear this message, cool your jets. And so I really want to push for that for everybody tonight. So that is my call to action for everybody tonight. To just tell Jeff to chill.
It's about sending a message.
It's about sending a message. And if there was a third option for what Josh said, sure, vote for that, but there isn't. So we got to do the best we can, and the best we can is fewer twists.
What was it? Was it Rick Devens or Owen Knight who posted the options on these votes are everyone gets a puppy and diarrhea forever?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We're choosing diarrhea.
I don't remember. It was a former Survivor player. I apologize, but it made me chuckle.
All right. Anything else, guys?
Nope.
Then this has been the Castaway Consultants.
Got nothing else for you.
Good night.